Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's discussion board where we are joined by Julie Meehan of the Gardner CAC. Thanks for joining us, Julie.
Thank you for having me.
So, to start, can you tell us what the CAC stands for and just what the organization does in general?
So the Gardner CAC, it's officially known as the Gardner Community Action Committee. Everybody knows this, as I said, as the Gardner CAC. We're most known as a food security agency in Gardner. We do serve Greater Gardner, so Gardner, Ashburnham, Hubbardston, Westminster, and Templeton. Along with the food pantry, we also have a free community meal site every week, emergency assistance with rental, mortgage, heating, and utility terminations. We do medical transportation for senior citizens. We do a Christmas gift program for children ages newborn to 12, Thanksgiving and Christmas food baskets. We do a Dinners on Us program, which is another food security program, which provides kind of hello fresh meat slow cooker is what we've dubbed it. Excuse me. We also have a backpack program, which provides brand new backpacks to students enrolled in grades K through 12, and an information and referral component. So if we are not able to assist somebody in need directly with our internal programs, we're able to refer them out to an agency that would address their needs specifically.
Yeah, so sort of how I've explained to the students that MBOC is a one-stop for veteran needs. You guys are really a one-stop for everything else the community could need. And I don't think a lot of folks realize that most food pantries are a lot more than just a food pantry.
Just a food pantry, exactly. Because the food insecurity is what the presenting need is, but often there's so many needs underlying.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you all are considered a small nonprofit. Can you talk a little bit about your staffing?
Yep. So right now, we have two full-time staff members, myself and our community liaison. We also have two part-time employees, and we have about 90 volunteers throughout the year.
Wow, the amount of volunteers you guys have is staggering to me. Can you talk a little bit about where those volunteers come from and the types of things that you have them do?
Yeah, our volunteers actually come from a wide range of resources. We have some from Mount Wachusett Community College locally, some from within the faith community in Gardner, some from Haywood Hospital, some from the schools, the public schools in Gardner. So they really come from all branches in the community. The one great thing that we recognize with our volunteers is they come here, they have a good experience, and that can help let people know one, what we do, help spread awareness of our services, but also get people connected to our agency. Our volunteers really help with pretty much everything that we do here, from stocking shelves, making food kits, reminder calls for the medical transportation program, cleaning, mopping, sweeping, food bank runs, our holiday programs. They help parents select gifts for their kids. The backpack program, they're filling backpacks with school supplies, helping them pass them out. So really, our volunteers are involved in every facet of our programs in our agency.
Okay. So I just wanted to open with that scope because you have less than five staff members and more than 90 volunteers for all of the services that you provide. And you are in charge of all of that.
I am. I am.
So in addition to all of those staffing and program management activities, what else are you doing in your role?
Oh, since we are a smaller nonprofit with a smaller budget, I do the marketing, the HR, the payroll, finance, anything finance related, board engagement and involvement, connection, communication with all of our donors, fundraising. So anything that needs to be done with the agency, I do.
Yeah, it's huge. It's really all encompassing. And I think a lot of folks, when they think of nonprofits, think of much larger things, right? They'll think of like the Susan G. Komen Foundation or nonprofit subs of a hospital. They don't think of, the smaller agencies that run on less than $500,000 a year in what the very few people who work there take on for very low salaries
Yeah.
oftentimes, but it's good work.
It is.
Can you
You
talk a
really
little
have to
bit?
love what you do.
You really do, because it's all you'll do.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you talk a little bit about how you came into this role? Because I know you sort of grew into it.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, I actually started working in the hospitality field when I graduated high school. Loved it. but it just wasn't fulfilling. So on my days off, I would volunteer here at the CAC, just working in the food pantry, stocking shelves, helping fundraisers, things like that. There was an entry level position that opened, and I joke that a fortune cookie changed my line of work, um, because I was volunteering the day that the entry level position had a goodbye party for her. And my fortune was legitimately, you're going to change your line of work. And that prompted a conversation with the then executive director. So I left my job at the local eatery, came here as an entry level person, and grew with the agency. I became the executive assistant. And then when our executive director retired, I stepped into her role.
And about how long is that time period for you?
I've been the executive director for 17 years now, and I've been with the agency for 21.
Okay. And so for full disclosure to the class, so Julie and my organization, we're located in the same city and we serve on each other's board of directors. So I've been on the board of directors for the CAC, I don't know, maybe 3 years now.
I believe so, yes.
And Julie's been on my board of directors almost the equivalent amount of time. And that was actually a strategic decision. So we talked in the beginning about if it would be a conflict of interest, and it really isn't, particularly because they're both volunteer roles, but also because it really helps us to collaborate more, right? So while my organization only serves veterans, veterans also go to the CAC. And so it helps with things like, oh, we're giving out Thanksgiving meals. Let me share with you my list of clients so you know that they're covered through us and they don't come and get a
Yeah.
second meal through you. It also really helps with timing of fundraisers because there's such a small pool of donors. And if we both had fall fundraisers, we would both end up with less. Um, and I'm hoping we can talk about that a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about how your organization fundraises, and then also sort of how your budget is made up? Because I know for mine, fundraising is like less than 5%. We're not in a affluent area, and
Yeah,
that's
right.
not where it's coming from, but it's still something you have to do.
Yeah. So our surprisingly, our largest support up until our recent year mark was the private community donations coming in.
Yeah.
We do 3 fundraisers a year. We do a turkey raffle, which is very unique to Gardner in this area. So if you're outside of Gardner or North Central, you're going to have no idea what that is. We do an annual letter campaign in October, and then we do a comedy show in early fall. So those are the 3. But other than that, it's private donations that come in throughout the year that make up the largest portion of our budget.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting because it's so opposite for me. You're taking all the money, Julie.
I know. Well, the tough thing too, though, is relying so heavily on community donations, is that our reputation and what we can do, I'm not going to say it's limited, but we have to be very careful to make sure that we don't do anything that will upset the community as a whole, where the other agencies that rely more on grants or
Mhm.
other funding sources have a little bit more, I'm going to say, flexibility.
Yeah, it is a picky world when people feel like they're a part of your organization, even if
Mm-hmm.
they're not, or like when they feel they know the needs of the community, even if they not may not be integrated in it as much. Um, I think that that community relationship part is always hard to navigate. Um, are there other kind of organizations or even like meetings or events throughout the community that you participate in to help educate the community or be present in it, or do you send other staff to things like that?
It's a mix. So I attend most of the meetings, community events and fairs like with Haywood Hospital, GCAT. If I'm not at personally, one of our staff members will go to, just to make sure that we have a presence in the community.
Mhm.
So a lot of the larger community events we attend, either myself, like I said, myself personally, or a staff member will go.
Yeah. And it's a balance there too, right? Because there's so many other things to get done, but you just have to be out and about with people.
Exactly. Yep.
Uh, okay.
Yep.
And with that, so even though you get the majority of your funding from donations, can you talk a little bit about the grant and contract sources you have, and how you've connected the organization to those sources?
Yeah, we've been one of the selling points, I guess you could say, of the CAC is that we've been in the community for 1970. So for a lot of foundations and other grant sources, they can see that as a sense of stability for us, which is very helpful.
Mhm.
And the number of people that we serve helps us as well. But we've connected with like the United Way. There's a Nana's grant out of Boston, Knowlton Foundation, and the Burling Foundation are other funding sources.
Mhm. And how about your political connections a bit? Because you've got a state earmark now as well, right?
We do. That was brand new to us. 2 years ago, we had never received one prior to that. And that's specific to help us relocate to a larger facility, which is very much needed right now.
Yeah. And hopefully it sticks around too, and morphs into other things. So we've had a state
Absolutely.
earmark that we got from our state representative, Zlotnick, who is actually another faculty member in this program. So the students will be bumping into him eventually. And we have had our earmark off and on for about 12 years, more on than off.
Yeah,
But one of the upside to that is every year we know we're getting anywhere from 100 to
yeah,
$125,000 potentially.
yeah,
The downside of that is with every political change that becomes more at risk. And since we've had it for 10 years, if we suddenly lose
yeah,
$125,000, that's really significant. So I think part of the balance with some of these more finicky contracts is figuring out, yes, I need this right now, but how do I live without it when it's gone?
right.
And I think that's going to become a part of the issue with public fundraising as well, because there's a lot going on in the economy right now that makes donations lower than ever. Are you feeling that at all?
Right now, we're okay, but we do fully anticipate to see a dip in private donations coming in. One of the other things, the only other full-time employee that we have is a contract that we have through MOC. And a MOC is the shelter provider in Massachusetts. That contract is set to end in September, and we've all been told that that shelter is closing in June. So come June, we're potentially down a full-time staff member if we don't find an alternative source. So like you said, it is trying to figure out how are we going to navigate this when we lose that contract to be down an employee, or how are we going to make up and find creative ways to keep her on board and find new funding sources. It's a hard balance.
It is. And I want to be clear that when you say we, you mean you. This
Yeah.
falls this falls pretty solely on you to figure out. I talk in the we for my organization as well, but the truth is, like, if the money goes away, that's on me to fix. Um
Yeah.
and and
Yeah.
it is, there's only so many grants to go for, and we are all applying for the same ones.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah. And one of the tough things I will say with the CAC is being a smaller agency, we don't have the footprint that a larger nonprofit does. We serve 5 communities, which are one city, 4 small towns. So the population isn't large. So it makes it harder to compete with a larger nonprofit that has a dedicated grant writer, that has a larger budget. So it's a fickle world out there.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that we've been noticing a lot is, in a lot of these applications, they're looking for numbers served and the demographics of the population served, but we happen to be in a very white, low
Yep,
income area, and so it doesn't our applications don't hold up as well against a Worcester organization.
exactly.
And it's
Yep,
hard to make that argument. Particularly when most of the argument is, yeah, we're serving less people, but there is literally no transportation.
right.
So if we don't spend half our day driving around to
Right.
get all of this
Exactly.
stuff and deliver it to these people, I mean, it's a full day just to go to the Worcester Food Bank and restock your
Exactly.
shelves.
Yep.
And a lot of grant
Yep.
funders, don't realize that unless you really call it out for them in the
Right.
application.
Right.
Okay, so we've talked a bit about grant funding. We've talked a bit about staffing and what you do. What are some other things your days are made up with? What are some of the emergency calls that you get? Some of the things you have to figure out on your toes? I know there's a
It's
million answers.
Yeah, honestly, it's really kind of across the board. Right now, our biggest battle is staffing. One of our part-time staff members had a pretty severe medical emergency.
Mhm.
So on top of doing the grant writing and reporting to the different agencies that we do, I'm also front lines right now.
Mhm.
So that means that when somebody comes in for help for food, they're going to see my face when they come in the door, helping them set up, trying to make sure that we have our volunteers lined up. So that's something else that you have to really plan time according, because we rely so heavily on our volunteers. If one volunteer is out, that really sets everything else as a delay for the day.
Yeah, I agree. It is and it's tough too because it's nice to be on the front lines because then you really stay connected with people and understand the need. But the other side of it is once people see that it is you, everybody wants to talk to the person in charge.
Very much so. I think my goal for yesterday was to get a grant done, and I had no time to get it done because I had a revolving door of people, which you need to have those connections, but it is hard and delays everything else that has to get done.
Yeah, it's
So,
hard to keep things prioritized appropriately. Um, so let me know to the students that we are both working from home today and we are both sick. So you'll hear my cat screaming in the background and you'll hear Julie's
yeah.
household moving around.
Yes.
We're all going to be understanding of that. So don't worry. I can see it in your eyes.
Thank you.
No, it's fine. Um, Okay, so can you tell me a little bit about, besides MVOC, because we're on each other's boards, what are some of the other local organizations you coordinate with and how do you guys work together?
Um, sorry. So I also serve on the Health Foundation of Central Mass, their community outreach board, which is very helpful just to bring a voice to Central Mass
Mhm.
and the issues that are facing North Central Massachusetts. We also work, like you said, with Montechusett Veterans Outreach Center. We're working a little bit more closely with the GEM and the Voices of Truth in Gardner, and that really just helps to make sure that we have a positive relationship with them.
Mhm.
It's easier when we're able to connect with them if we have a client come in that has a specific need that their agency more of just a soft handoff.
And can you just very quickly explain what is GEM and what is the task
Oh,
force?
sorry.
Yeah.
So GEM is the Gardner Emergency Housing Mission. They're a small family shelter here in Gardner. And Voices of Truth is a domestic violence agency that serves families here in Gardner.
And I think that connects back to what you said is that, the presenting need is food, but often there's a need for stable or safe housing and relocation and other support services as well. And then I think the other unique thing about your organization that I wanted to call out is that you're currently housed with the senior center. You're making plans to move into a new location that has maybe two or three other organizations,
So excited.
which is exciting and terrifying.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what it is like to be located in a shared space facility and how that affects your kind of day-to-day operations?
Um, that I think there's pros and cons to it. One of the things we've been housed with the senior center since the inception of our agency in 1970, so there's definitely a trust and a relationship there, which translates also with the seniors. So if a senior goes to the senior center, presents to one of their staff as an issue, they're able to again come upstairs, make the soft handoffs to us, and it works vice versa. So if a senior knows us through like our medical transportation program and they have an other need, we can, do a soft handoff again. It's really important that the person in need knows that they're going to a trusted agency. Same thing if a veteran comes in here that has a need, we can reach out to you and say this is the need and just make that connection. So it is really helpful to have those relationships and to have that closeness with the senior center. The flip side of that is that a lot of people think we are the same agency, um, which can be difficult in certain times because they'll call. We get a lot of calls looking to sign up for a senior center program, and no matter how many times you say, I'm sorry, we're a different agency, there's a lot of frustration with that with seniors.
Yeah, we get that a lot too. A lot of people think we are part of the VA, which is the Veterans Administration, and we're not. We actually exist to fill in the gaps where the VA has not done well or isn't able to fill a need. We specifically advertise ourselves as if you don't want to go to the VA, come here.
Yeah.
We get people who come in and are like, well, can't you just pull up my medical records? No,
No.
we don't have
Yeah.
that connection. Can't you just call, my social worker? If you sign a release, I can call
Right.
the social
Right.
worker. But
Right.
that mixed messaging is really complicated, and there's pros and cons. I think
Yeah.
you all being located with the senior center is excellent for a lot of reasons, and those are a lot of the population that needs your help.
Yeah.
But the mixed messaging is tough, and it is increasingly difficult to reach people, right? So we do our letter campaigns and we do our social media, but people aren't as responsive and as engaged as they used to be. What are I know you guys are trying to combat that a little bit by getting creative on your social media. How else do you all market yourselves, or do you need to because you've been around for so long?
It's a little bit of both. We do mostly social media is what we have found is most effective for us.
Mhm.
Even what we're seeing in Gardner is social media for us, Facebook, because that's typically both our donor base and the population is kind of the age demographic is more Facebook as opposed to Twitter, X,
Yeah.
or Instagram. So that works best for us. The mailing campaign that we do, which is it's officially a fundraiser for us, but we also use it really more as a dual purpose that we know that everybody who gets the letter, not everybody who receives the letter is going to be able to, but they might know somebody who needs help. And we actually have a line in the letter stating that, like, maybe you're not able to help, but you know somebody who needs help to pass on our information. So that's really our two biggest marketing plans and outreach activities right now.
Yeah, we do that too. In our letter, it says something along the lines of if you can't help, like the Facebook page, share a post, spread the word.
Yeah.
That's helpful too. Okay, so in our last couple of minutes here, I do want to talk a little bit about leadership, which is sort of this ambiguous thing, right? So these students are looking at how do you lead a nonprofit, and I think it comes down to just doing the day-to-day work. But do you have a particular approach or motto or anything like that that you kind of go by?
uh, I guess not officially,
Yeah.
but I would say one of the biggest things that I have learned is that you need to be able to be flexible and you need to be forgiving of yourself. Only because there's so many times. This morning I was on a call, and there were so many things. I had so many goals that I wanted to get done yesterday, and I wasn't able to because of the volume of people, because of other issues. So I think you really do need to be forgiving on yourself and know that you're doing everything that you can. And you also need to be adaptable to be able to switch techniques if you need to, whether it's dealing with a client or whether it's fundraising or your marketing approach, and just be flexible and always be willing to take advice from people, or maybe not take it, but listen to advice.
Yeah.
To have an open mind to hear what people have to say and be receptive of that.
Yeah, I've described it as an ability to navigate mental whiplash, right? Because you'll go from an emergency call from a client to a funding meeting to an event, and you have to put on a different face at each of those, and all of those
Yep.
faces are authentic and important, but you've got to switch in like 30
Right.
seconds from crisis management to happy time to make a speech.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. Yep.
And it
Yep.
is tough, and so I appreciate your guidance too, to be forgiving of yourself. There is always going to be a list of things you haven't gotten done, and once you think you've gotten to the last one, six more will be added, and it
Exactly.
is it is just the nature of it.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I think that's it for now. So thank you for logging on. And for the students, thank you for bearing with us, recording from home, recording sick, recording with, life happening in the background. As always, you're going to respond to the prompt questions for the discussion board and then to at least two of your fellow classmates. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Thank you. And thank you, Julie.
Thank you. Take care.